welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Long time since we've done one of these things. We're a little bit behind. We're going to do an after action today. It's actually from August, so we're quite a bit behind on this, but we still want to do it because it's a good match. So with me is Mike Ford. His visuals may jump in here at some point. Until then, you got to stare at me. So sorry about your luck there. Guardian. The Guardian run in not Wilmore. Where's that in Kentucky, Mike? Why did I just forget the name of that town?
Well, it's hosted at Elk Creek Hunt Club, and
there you go.
If you want to know where that is, jump on their website and check them out. It's a fantastic facility.
That is. So Elk Creek, and it's about 2 hours south of us, which is nice. It's probably the closest major run and gun that we go to. So we always stay down there. They got a nice lodge they let the RO stay in, and of course we always RO because that's the way to really enjoy these. Get to hang out with friends, you get to drink with friends, do all the fun stuff. So let's get into this. Match flavor. This year they did a, what would you, like a throwback, I guess. So they best of. They talked to a bunch of different match directors that they've shot their matches that they really like, and had them, I guess, submit their favorite stage that they had done before, or stages that they liked. And they took that and did their own version of it, based off the terrain and what they were doing. And then they threw in a little bit of their own flavor as well. So I know there was Matt Stinnett. I think they said the thing Legion, but I actually think the stage they did was like Matt's old March run and gun match, kind of the one that started run and gun on the east of the Mississippi. I think they did one of Ellis's matches. They did a zombie stage, Beware Bathrooms, and maybe one or two more that I'm missing. Does that sound about right, Mike?
Yeah, they pulled from most of the popular running guns that I would say east of the Mississippi that covers those, the match directors. So we had a nice, diverse set of challenges that some people might have seen before, and those who haven't got to taste them for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about run and gun stages is so much of it is natural terrain and terrain specific. If you're just setting up a USPSA stage in a bay, you can get the same exact targets, same poppers, same everything, and you could set that same exact stage up within inches of each other. Run and gun's not usually like that. So you've got the flavor of the stage, but shooting it from at Matt's match or Tiger's match is not going to be the same as shooting it here. So familiar themes, but still kind of a new challenge each time. So anything else to add to the match flavor before we move on?
No, I'd say let's jump right into it.
Okay. So the real quick, distance and divisions. They only have one distance. That's the 5K, quote unquote. I didn't look up. I know it was over 5K. The thing about Guardian is that it's hot. Usually, we'll talk about the heat, I'm sure, during this episode. And there's a lot of elevation. And sometimes you look at the overall and it doesn't seem like that. Guardian, if you're not going down, you're going back up a hill. There's some, Mike said it best. It's kind of like Heartbreak, whereas Heartbreak's a 10K. If you take all those hills and you just kind of smush it together like an accordion, all these long uphills are now real steep uphills. So very rugged, very hilly. With the heat, definitely a challenge. So divisions, you have, I forget what they call it. We'll say light fighter, the unweighted division, anything goes. Carry as much or as little weight as you want. And then they had their operator division, I think is what they called it. And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, 35-pound ruck, correct? You're me. Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. No, I believe 35 pounds is correct.
Okay. So 35-pound ruck, finish with that. Rifle, pistol, that doesn't count. Web gear does count though at this match. So gear use / needed. There's nothing really special about this match. This year they didn't have anything that you would consider long range. So, pretty much any gun would have worked. I shot my 12.5 Thunder Beast can. Got my Trijicon AccuPower on that. My Staccato, typical, my same web gear. I did bring for the ruck. I brought my ILBE, which is already a heavy pack. It gets heavier when it's wet. We'll talk about that a little bit later because I ended up with a whole lot of weight. But just standard running gun gear. There really isn't anything special or out of place. I mean, this is definitely what you consider your kind of classic running gun. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I generally bring pretty much my classic kit. The only considerations that this match gets over some of the other ones is equipping for a swim. Other than that, it's pretty much my regular running gun gear.
Yep. So nothing worth talking about. If you've heard our other after actions, you know generally what we run. If you ran this match with a red dot on your rifle, a 1x red dot or something like that, even a prism like 2 or 3x prism, you'd be fine. Like I don't know that I like LPVOs, but I don't know that if you're good at shooting your optic and your gun, it won't really matter in this match. It's how well you shoot. No kind of gear race here. So, let us go on. We're going to start. I believe we're trying to remember back. This is a while ago. I think there were 6 stages. There's some stuff in between there. So we're just going to get into it. Take off from the start line. You got half mile-ish, maybe not even that, quarter mile to the first stage. And that is the rifleman stage. So this is a Matt Stinnett special. Rifle only. You had standing, like kneeling or seated, and prone at various distances. I want to say was standing was 75 yards maybe ish. And then kneeling and prone were targets at 150, I think. Something, does that sound right, Mike? Was there 2 or 3 different distances?
I believe there's 3 different distances. I believe one was offhand, one was kneeling, sitting, and one was prone, if I recall.
And they there was either 2 or 3 positions for that, and they got progressively further out there. This is those are 3 of your classic shooting positions, unsupported as far as you didn't have a barricade or anything like that. So I think there were 6 shots, like 3 per target. Each area had 2 different targets as a part of that array. So it's just how well can you shoot with good fundamentals. And I didn't do as well as I normally would have liked, but that's kind of, some days you do well, some days you don't. But it was definitely a great stage for just marksmanship.
Yeah, I would say that stage is sounds deceptively easy. But being this is the first stage, I'll tell you, at most matches, especially running guns, it's really hard to pull off a nice, clean first stage. You've got your first big heart rate jump from your run. It's your first big stage, so you've got expectations on yourself to perform. And I'd say for a lot of people that they really haven't hit their stride yet. So first stages I know are normally ones that I look at and say, I want to place well enough that it doesn't hurt me, but I don't expect to pull off any kind of miracles because I don't want to put those expectations on myself. I know that this stage did not go as well as I had hoped for myself, and it was one of those that didn't really kill me, but it didn't really help me either. And but it goes back to being able to execute some of the fundamental stuff that we preach on demand. and you can never get enough practice at that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And we haven't really laid out. So we shot RO day Friday. The heat index, while I was out on the course, because I was really right there at the heat of the day, it got to over 100 degrees with the heat index. I mean, it was very, very hot. And there is some shade on the course. That run from the beginning to the first stage, there is no shade. So you hit the heat and it starts working on you immediately.
Yeah, heat wise, since we're going to go ahead and touch on this, this was the worst match I've ever done heat wise. Kentucky has some pretty good humidity tucked in those hills. And yeah, I believe the heat index on RO day was almost 110 degrees. And on
Yeah.
competitor day, it was 15 or 20 degrees less. So
I think
match
it was 10.
one,
I think it was about 10 overall degrees. But yeah, so it was still very warm. But as it seems as usual, our day kind of is the worst weather.
Yep.
Yeah. So and I agree. This is the one, and it was a little bit later in the course. I think it was between stage 2 and 3. I fell a couple times in the woods, rucking weight. The heat was already kind of getting to me, and honestly, I was thinking in my head, like, there is no possible way that I'm going to be able to finish this match. And that's the only time in a running gun I've ever doubted my ability to complete. Now, maybe I'm not going to be as fast as I wanted, or, I'm not shooting as well, but I have never, especially that early in a race, thought there's no way I'm going to finish this. And I was just going to keep going until I couldn't. I mean, eventually I either stop or I make it to the end. Thankfully, I made it to the end, but I can't say I've ever had those kind of doubts, and especially a mile into the race. I mean, it was really hot, and unfortunately, leading up to it, we hadn't had a lot of heat around us. So even though we train outside a lot, we just didn't have any heat to get acclimatized to. So that does not help. All right, so moving on. Stage 2 is kind of a classic for Guardian, their double VTAC stage. So you started off, if I remember correctly, you had some pistol targets that you had to shoot through a bunch of different ports, interior ports on the VTAC. Once you cleared that, you, I believe, grounded your pistol kind of safely, and then went to your rifle and had some throoms that you had to shoot through various numbered ports on the VTAC there. This is the one stage I DNF'd this one, probably because of the heat, me just already feeling not great at this point. But I didn't miss a lot. I just was like, the pistol went in okay-ish, and then the rifle, I was just slow. I couldn't get in a position. I couldn't get my eye relief, not eye relief. I just couldn't get. There's some low ports that just took way too long to get into, and I just kind of struggle bust on it. So, Mike, I knew you did a little bit better than me.
Yeah, that was one of the stages that didn't hurt me, but was very difficult. The VTAC with the pistol was a challenge, but very doable. And then the VTAC with the rifle actually was very close. It's actually makes several running guns we shot this year with very close VTAC. Well, it wasn't VTAC, but the targets engaged were very close. They did an excellent job of using throoms, and by placing them so close, it wasn't just getting your gun in position to engage the target. You actually had to find the targets. This match was the first time I ran a SOPMOD Block 2 upper that I had built. A little bit of GWAT clone fan stuff going on here. I'll give a shout out to that crew. And engaging those targets at, I don't know, they were 7 yards probably, maybe closer. It felt like at 4x was absolutely brutal. Spent a lot of time hunting targets. And yeah, shout out to Guardian for making VTAX something that's already difficult that much more harder.
Yep, that was a challenging stage. And again, it's not like it wasn't an impossible challenge. I mean, VTACs are we shoot them enough. Usually we do pretty well, but especially some of those low ports, when you put a lot of ports in there and you're really hitting a lot of positions and you've got the height over bore, you've really just got to be on your game that day. And it's a doable stage, but if you get behind the eight ball, you're gonna fail like I did. So really, really good stage, but not a cakewalk at all. All right. So for anything else there, Mike, before we go on?
Nope. It was straightforward, but technical.
Yep. All right. So you went on from there, and we went to the next stage was a zombie stage. We actually just shot that 2 weekends ago, the most recent version of that, but we'll get to that after action another time. This was Beware of Bathrooms. So before you shoot Beware of Bathrooms, you had a 60, 70 pound, I think, sandbag that you had to do a number of Turkish get-ups with, which kind of a modified Turkish get-up, kind of I guess a throwback to Heartbreak. It would be that one, because they usually have that as one of the challenges for at least plus competitors. So you did some Turkish get-ups. You're already pretty winded. Then you went to the porta-john they had there, and on the beep, they either opened the door or you had to open the door. I'm trying to remember which one. And you, from inside the porta-john, you had a host of steel targets. I mean, 16, maybe 12, 16, somewhere in there that you had to neutralize. And Mike may remember. He remembers this stuff better than I do. I think twice. I think you had to go through it twice. So there's probably 12 of them that you went through twice for a total of 24, if I'm remembering correctly. But tough stage. I mean, there's a lot of steel there, and they were not hard, but again, the distance is getting a little bit out there, and if you do your part and you get a good trigger squeeze and a good sight picture, it's no problem. If you're rushing, rush, try, hurry, you're gonna suffer.
Yeah, that was definitely one where shooting your cadence was pretty important because you couldn't afford to throw misses, and the time to do makeups besides the Anitmo expenditure would get you. And it's really tough when you get a set of steel out there in front of you like that. Like, and most of us just kind of want to go ham and go to town on them.
Yeah, and they were just far enough that you kind of had to respect them a little bit. It wasn't that you had to like bullseye shoot them or anything like that. But yeah, if you just tried to blaze through, like you were probably gonna struggle unless you're just really on your game. Okay, if nothing else, we will go on. You jumped into the woods. You had some ladders, the famous Guardian ladder. So for those that haven't shot it or maybe heard our other after actions, ever so often where there are two trees that are closely aligned, they have some boards nailed across them, and you have to climb up and over them. The tallest of those is probably 10 rungs. As time has gone on, the rungs get taller and taller because they've had this now for, these ladders for 4 years or something like that. So this is not like your Lowe's special ladder. These are like you grab on, you got to pull, kind of almost do a pull up and a lunge at the same time, because it's they are some challenging heights to get up. I said the tallest one's probably a good 15. It's probably not 10 rungs, but it's probably 15 feet up there. They actually have an auto belay if you want to use that. And it's tough anyways when you have a rifle and pistol and then ammo and 35 pounds of extra pack, it's an extra challenge. And you really, when you do ruck divisions, I think we've talked about before, you really have to think safety and really focus on what you're doing, because a fall from that would be really bad news without any gear. But with 35 pounds, it would be even worse. So getting over top of it, when you're shifting weight, if that bag's shifting, if something's going on, you really have to kind of pay attention to what you're doing. So yeah, you went through, I think, 3 of those of various different heights. Does that sound about right, Mike?
Yeah, I believe there was 3 of them in play this year.
Plus a low crawl that people weren't really sure was in play or not, and I low crawled under it, even though apparently a lot of other people didn't, because they didn't know it was in play, and that really sucked a lot of juice out of me, because dragging that bag behind me and everything getting caught on the netting that was laying on the ground was that sucked.
Good thing you're such a stud, buddy.
I'm telling you, well, so the reason people didn't think it was in play, it used to be pinned up on all 4 corners and you just had to crawl under it. But I think like 1 or 2 corners, it wasn't pinned up anymore. So it's like laying on you. So as you're trying to go under it, it's catching on your gun, your pack, your gear. I mean, it was a challenge. So yeah, the last one's kind of up on a hill. You climb up over that and you come down this steep little kind of hill into one of their clay ranges. So this is a Sporting Clays range. And you had they do the pretty much same stage every year. You had a shotgun and 2 rounds, and they would throw 2 birds. You try to shoot both birds. You get points for whether you hit them or not. And after that, it was a sled drag. They had a pretty heavy sled, metal sled with a rope on it that you pulled down the road and back up. So anything to add to that, Mike?
I really enjoy that stage every year. I grew up like a lot of Americans, hunting, going out with my dad, going out with my grandpa, and got into doing some upland hunting and pheasants forever in my youth, and had a pretty good bird dog as a young man. And so to go up back to doing some wing shooting-esque stuff is a good throwback, and I think it's good to pull run gunners out of their normal shooting disciplines and expose them to something else. So I look forward to that every year and look forward to it this upcoming year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I traditionally do, because of all the 3-gun, I traditionally do really, really good with the shotgun stuff. I'll get most of my hits. I rarely don't miss much in these competitions. I missed both clays on that. I don't know if it was just, if it comes down to fit of the shotgun, or I was just a little slow on everything. But I think that's the first running gun. I didn't hit a single one of those birds, and it bruised the ego a little bit. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and one thing that they've had us set up at a few different places there, and because it's Sporting Clays, you might be shooting clays that are and moving away from you, kind of quartering directly away from you. This one is tough because they're actually coming from your right and angling towards you across to your left. So they're out there pretty far, and you definitely need to lead them and kind of anticipate where that clay is going to be by the time your shot pattern gets there. So, yep, it definitely takes me back to my youth shooting that one every year.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know when it comes to clays like that, especially when they start dropping, you have to shoot way, because I've shot enough clays. You have to shoot way below them than what you would think. If you lead them just a little bit, you're going to shoot over it every time. And I didn't lead them nearly enough, because by the time you saw them and they got within range, they were starting their drop. So you're right. It was fun, but it was a challenging stage.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Okay, so moving on from there, we headed to everybody's favorite part, the pond. So this year, they've done it kind of differently in the past, as far as like the swim whether it's mandatory. Last year you could leave your gear on the dock, swim across, come back for it, and the penalty was just that you had to run back and get it. The time it took you to go back. This year, if you did the swim, you could still do that, but if you did the swim with all your gear, you got like a coin or something like that, or that was worth I want to say 20 or 30 minutes off your run time. So
Yes, they wanted it to be worth your while.
yes. So it was worth it to do it. And I did what I did the first year out there, which was had a big construction bag, tossed a lot of my gear in there. And this time I kept my rifle out. But, tied that up real good, duct taped it up the best I could, tied it to, they've always got like a rope that goes across, and they've got a rope that you can kind of strap on there. And I just try to float it across, basically, which it worked pretty well. Some of my stuff got wet. As I said, my bag got wet. My ruck got wet. I had my sandbags taped up, so I didn't get my sand wet. But an ILBE can suck up a good 5 pounds of extra water, so that made the rest of the match challenging. But after you got out of that this year, they had a plastic tube that you had to, use a rope and climb up, all soaking wet. You're trying to drag your gear up there. I mean, it was a mess. Those things are absolutely hell on my knees, and this one was no exception. But it's a fun time, and they wanted to challenge you in your gear. My rifle, I had it slung. I had the sling over top of the rope, and I even had some extra cordage on it because it's an SBR. I got a can on there. Like, I don't feel like losing 2 stamps to the bottom of this pond, but it got soaked. I mean, the thing was underwater for a while, and it ran good the rest of the match, so no issues there. I kind of used a little thicker oil than I usually do because just in case it got wet. But that's kind of a challenge of that is, if your guns and gear get wet, how do they run? I'll let Mike go here in a second if he wants to add any thoughts to this, but I will say this. All our guns, we've used good quality gear and we take care of it for the most part. But know this, it doesn't matter what gun, what pistol you use, what rifle you use. If they get wet enough, if they get muddy enough, if they get dirty or sandy enough, they will fail you. So my public service announcement right now is that use good gear that can get wet, muddy, dusty, sandy, whatever, but do everything in your power to keep them from getting muddy, dusty, dirty, wet, frozen, whatever, because it's just tempting fate. And so mine got a little wet, no big deal. I tried my best to keep it out of the water and keep from really dunking it, but it kind of is what it is. But just know that if you're pushing your luck, if you just really submerge it and don't care, really drag it through the mud, like eventually it's going to crap on you. I don't care what it is. So Mike, any thoughts or anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So I really enjoy jumping in that cool water. It doesn't matter, which year it's been. Every year when I slide in that water, it just feels amazing. The big thing for successfully crossing it is, number one, I would recommend understanding your buoyancy with gear. I'm not saying you have to go jump in a lake, but understand that you can be a really strong swimmer. And I would recommend going into the water with your hand on the safety line, because most people, unless you've done some sort of specific rescue or lifeguard or military training where they make you go in with boots and kit on, you are not going to be near as buoyant as all your other swimming escapades. So ease yourself in, hold on to the safety line, use it. It won't keep you out of the water. It'll go down in the water, but it gives you something to hold on to pull yourself across. I normally, since I do the ruck division, take contractor bag, dump my pistol, dump my magazines and ammo and my ruck into those contractor bags, then leave an umbilical cord with daisy chain and a carabiner, and I'll try to keep the top of that contractor bag closed, maybe duct taped closed, and snap that daisy chain and carabiner onto the safety line. It's pretty buoyant that way. I normally only end up with a couple cups worth of water in the bag, and so it keeps my ammo from getting dunked. It keeps my gear from getting really heavy with water, and also protects my pistol. And then I normally run a pretty heavy lubricant. These days, running suppressed, I'm using like a lot of light greases, heavy oils, and I run things very wet. So I've swum with my rifle now for a few years, and I've had zero issues. Uh, Now, that being said, in the front of my chest rig, if I got across the other side and my pistol had gotten dunked, or I racked the charging handle on my rifle, and I'm like, man, this is not near as wet as it needs to be. I keep the little free samples of oil that you get, like ALG Go Juice or Lucas Extreme Duty. Some of the little different brands. You get these little tiny, half-ounce packs or whatever, and I'll keep one or two of those in my chest rig. And if a gun gets too dry on the course, I rip it open, dump it in, rack, and relube the gun, because post swim, that is the number one failure of guns I've seen out there on the course, is people are not re-lubricating their guns after the swim. And most optics these days seem to do pretty well with the swim, but not all lubricants are created equal. So that's kind of my thought on the swim, is just be smart, have fun, enjoy the cool down, but have an exit strategy of how you're going to make sure your kit performs once you get out.
Yep, absolutely. I've got the BCM grip's got that little, trap door or whatever. I keep one of the little Lucas things in there because, it could be water, it could be mud or sand, it could be. I've had rounds, the bullet inertia pooled itself, and I got a bunch of powder inside there. Like, once you get that cleaned out real well, if you got to really wash it out, you may need to re-lubricate it. So Mike makes a great point. Kind of have a plan for when things go sideways, because you do enough of these, they go sideways. If you check out our Legion 2 years ago, I think, Sean Murphy talked about his, that man has done probably more matches than me and Mike combined of various different sports. And coming out of a creek crossing, the bank collapsed on him, and he fell in the water, and his rifle and pistol got just covered in mud, and he had to struggle through. And I think the amount of mud and stuff that got in there, I don't know that like a little bit of packet of lubricant was going to fix his problems, but it was pretty bad. And the point is, you do enough of these, you're going to run into Murphy's going to show up, Murphy's Law is going to show up, and guess what? You're going to have a bad day one day because something's going to happen. So Mike's makes a great point about having a plan.
Well, right. And you never know. Sean Murphy might show up and beat you, and you might not have a good day too.
You know what? If I can come in second to Sean Murphy, I've had a good day, because he is a phenomenal shooter and one of the nicest people I've met in the sport. So if I'm going to lose to someone, there's worse people to lose to. That's for sure.
Amen to that.
So you come up out of the water, you head up to another stage that's kind of a Guardian Classic, and that is their tower stage. So the Sporting Clays range has a tower. I guess they shoot Sporting Clays off of. I've never shot Sporting Clays, but I guess that's towers for that or a thing. This year, at the bottom, they had, I guess another throwback, they had gotten the rope that Heartbreak used this year. Towards the end of the match, Heartbreak had this like shipping rope, I mean, and what do you think, Mike? An inch and a half, 2 inch, or something like that?
Oh, I would say it was probably every bit of 2 inches.
Yeah, it's
It was
pretty.
thick.
It's thick, and they had 150 feet of it, 100 feet, 75 feet. It feels like it goes on forever. So at Heartbreak, you just had to pull it. Well, here they had rigged up on the tower like this pulley system that you had to pull it through this pulley system from one side to the other. So each time someone went, they pulled it to the other side. It was not a difficult pull. It wasn't a lot of weight. It just went on forever, and it's just this constant pulling. And it just seemed like it took forever. So it really did kind of smoke your arms just doing the same thing for 35, 45 seconds, a minute, whatever it took. So from there, traditionally, they would have you run up the stairs. Maybe you would be carrying an ammo can or something like that. This year, you just went up there. There was no kind of race to the top. And from the top, you started with pistol. You had a handful of pistols down off their second level, so it's a pretty steep shot down. And then after that, I think you holstered your pistol and then picked up your rifle, and you had a series of targets at a distance. And I think with the pistol and rifle, you had to go through the array twice with no double tap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then same thing. Pick up rifle, shoot those. I don't remember where I finished on it. I usually do pretty well at that stage. Since rifle I do fairly well at, and that's a large part of it. Seems like the targets are not huge, and people tend to struggle on that. So it's a fun stage. It always is. Mike, you got anything to add about either of those two?
The the rope pull kind of sucked. It would be really easy to burn out your arms, but the shooting overall wasn't that bad. It was definitely more about just getting good clean hits and not outrunning your sights.
Yeah, absolutely. And up there on that thing, I always find getting into a good position for that longer range. Like, I think this is a general rule that if within reason, you don't want to take forever, but the extra half second to get into a state or so to get into a stable position where you can, and that you can move between all the targets and but you're like steady enough that you're not really wobbling around and stuff. It's usually worth, I'd say it's worth taking 2 or 3 seconds if you can get 1 for 1 on everything and transition quickly. You win a lot more stages than me, Mike. Would you agree with that?
Yep, I would say timely first round impacts on each target is generally what does it for me.
Yeah, don't go crazy. And I've seen people, they take 5 to 10 seconds to get into position, and then usually they're slow the rest of the time too. Don't take 10 seconds to get in the position, but there is a big difference between just slapping the rifle down and starting working that trigger a second later to getting yourself stable enough and then boop, bam, 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 and making those hits in a steady, with good cadence and being solid. So something to practice, something to think about, because that's the people who are winning the stages, are the people who have that stability, enough stability to get the job done. All right, moving on. So the next stage, you kind of ran down into their valley area. They've done some stages in this area before, but it was 3 different positions. So you had, Mike may have this better than me. You had a target or 2 there, or 2 or 3 targets, and you had 3 positions that I think you had to do standing 1, 2, 3 going forward, and then come back and then do those all 3 going forward again from prone, right? Does that sound right?
I believe so.
Again, guys, if someone shot this, feel free, in the Facebook or somewhere, YouTube or wherever. Feel free to comment because it's been a little bit since we shot it, but there was some tall. It was brush hog, so there were some tall, thicker trees and leaves and weeds and stuff that you kind of had to be careful where you took a position. You couldn't go prone too low. It was rough. The terrain was kind of rough going back and forth just because of all the high, ankle high stuff. So it was a fun, challenging stage.
Yeah, there was definitely some brush left over on RO day from when it was initially cleared out. So a lot of us, we dropped down into prone on the shooting box, and then we had to kind of shimmy over a couple, couple elbow shimmies to the left to actually be able to see the target. And I believe the goal was they were going to have that cleaned up by competitor day. Or if not, I'm sure as people shimmied less and less and shot the brush down and got more and more clear.
Yeah, because like I said, it was brush hog. So if there was an old, scrub tree there that they brush hogged over, like the stump was still in front of you. There wasn't much you could do. That's the kind of things you shake out on RO day, figure out, the safety things that maybe you didn't see when you were proving it out, setting it up on the ground. But, simple, good stage. From there, you had some more run through the woods. And actually, you went up the hill where in the past they had a long range stage. But then you went down, you went through, and you went to kind of a new section we haven't been to before. And it was a stage that me and Mike worked for the weekend. And that was, you had a pistol, and they had this shield that one of the match directors, Scott Kiefner, had, I guess, in as a demo for Gun Stuff TV. He's on that show. They do a Facebook kind of live show. And he had that in for review. So you held the shield in one hand and then shot with the other. I don't think there's any stipulation. If you wanted to rest, you wanted to do whatever, it didn't matter. You just had to have that in your hand. You couldn't like set it on your feet or anything like that. The trick with this stage, there was, I believe, 10 targets, 8 or 10 targets, and it was a know your limits. So the front ones were, the front one was 5 yards, probably back to like 25 yards. And you continued to shoot until you either hit that 10th target or you decided that that was far enough for you. So it was a point stage. I think there are 10 points apiece. So if you shot one target and you're like, I'm done, 10 points. Shoot 4 targets, 40 points. Whatever going on out. This stage ate a lot of lunches. For starters, a lot of people showed up with no more pistol ammo. It was already all used up by that time, which kind of makes it hard to shoot the stage, pistol only stage. Sometimes they could find range candy, shoot a single shot. But the bigger thing was there was a target. I think it was the 5th target was just a little smaller. And then the 6th target got a little bit bigger. So you were really tempted. I mean, it could have been the 4th target. You're really tempted to shoot that one because the one after that, the next 1 or 2 got way bigger, and a lot of people missed on that. I think if you got any points on this stage, you were ahead of the curve. I mean, I got 30 or 40 points. I really didn't go that far back before I was like, I know how I'm shooting today. I'm done. One person cleared it. Another got 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that before they stopped. I mean, you had a couple decent runs, and a couple people just crushed it all the way up until the last or second to last, and the targets got smaller and further away, so it was a challenge. Mike, you got anything to add to that one?
So Heartbreak has definitely educated me on the Know Your Limits game by now. And so that late in the match, I shot it conservative. I gamed it best I could with using a shield and my belt to create a kind of stable shooting situation. And while I think my shooting might have been good enough to press on at the same time, I already knew that because of the way know your limits and how most people get real ballsy, that if I hit half of those targets and stopped, I would be in the top 50%, and honestly, probably put me in the top 20%. So from that standpoint,
Probably, if you got over 3 targets, I'd have to look at the scores. You were probably in the top 10% at this match. I mean, it was rough.
right. So from that standpoint, just call it. Take the points that you feel like or you can get, and whether that's 2, 3, or 4. But if there's some sort of mind trick out there, understand it's there for a reason. Like one of the guys that shot it really well was Scott Kiefner. Well, he had just done all the review stuff with that shield. So he is already a phenomenal shooter. And then he has the shield with him that he's been training with. And okay, yeah, he probably has it and he's willing to gamble. He takes more risk shooting wise in the matches than I often do. And he pulled it off. But I don't think that if you're in it to necessarily win it, you need to understand where to gamble and where not to. Now, if you crashed and burned on a previous stage and all the others were really good, and you thought to yourself, if I shot this clean, this could be the one thing that puts me on the podium, then you have to make that calculated risk. My goal is normally to shoot well enough across the board that I don't come up to one stage that I got a hero or zero on. And if a lot of these guys that I know are landing on the podium are not doing hero or zero stuff, you don't have to either.
Yep. 100%. So that was a tough stage. I kind of stages like that, and it's I've gotten a lot of long range stages this last year, and it's I mean it is what it is, but it's a little disheartening as an RO when it's a tough stage you're working and you just see people consistently failing at something. They can't make contact with that really far target, or they can't, they get 2 targets out and they stop, or they miss, and it's just like you just all day long you just see these like heartbreaking misses. that was one. It was a little hard to watch sometimes, but it was an interesting stage, and as Mike said, that was a Heartbreak stage. Heartbreak has done Know Your Limits or a similar pistol stage like that the last couple years with variations, and so that was kind of a throwback to that one. So after this stage, you would go to kind of start heading back, and the last kind of challenge that you would do has been a Guardian staple now for 2 years, and you go back to the lake and they have a kayak section. So you come up, you can drop your gear there. You can take as little or as much out there as you want. I dropped my rifle and my ruck and stuff like that, but I kept my chest rig and pistol and stuff on because it didn't make sense to take those off. And you get in a kayak, you kayak to one end of the lake, and then you kayak back. So just kind of a fun little thing. I think their idea with some of this is the shit hits the fan, into the worldy, like maybe you need to know how to kayak. You may have to get across the lake, and here's a kayak. You better know how to use it. So I guess, is there anything you want to add to that, Mike? I know that's pretty easy thing.
Yeah, so that stage came about because someone didn't like to swim and made this smart thing about, well, if it's the end of the world or whatever, I'm just going to steal a boat. And so then they throw boats out there. And
so now you got to swim and use a boat.
Yep. And the crazy thing is I saw and heard guys paddling gear that they didn't need to on those things. Kayaks are decently stable if you're a little familiar with them, but if you're tired and you've got a bunch of kit on, You might flip, you might lose stuff. That pond is way deeper than you guys would ever imagine. And so anything that you're not real confident that you can swim with or keep buoyant or don't want to lose, don't take on the kayaks. Use your brain, boys. I know that we're all
Yep.
tired, and girls. I know that we're all tired when we get to them, but common sense is the key to victory there. I think I've stripped off to just my chest rig and took my holster off and left my pistol and everything on the bank. Also, if you're not real strong at swimming, they offer the life jackets. If you're not real strong at swimming, or if you're taking a lot of kit, either throw the life jacket on or toss it in the kayak with you. Use your brains. I know we're all tired, and you also have to consider that if you're in rough shape and you fall off a kayak, you have to swim. We don't want you cramping up with all your kit on. I've not RO'd that yet, but I really don't want to go in there and have to save somebody or have a fellow RO have to do that. So, yeah, do it smart, folks. Enjoy the paddle, though. I would recommend if they've got sit on or sit in kayaks, that if you are unfamiliar with getting in and out of kayaks, use the sit on kayaks.
Yep.
If we were doing some great voyage down a river or across the lake or something, I prefer the sit ins. But I get on the sit on kayaks every year at Guardian for a reason.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, I probably did take my pistol off for that, if for no other reason than just sitting on a kayak and maneuvering around, having an extra, iron on your hips, not real conducive to that. But yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's
QLS
not,
Forks, people. QLS Forks. You would not
yeah,
believe how many times it's a fantastic idea to take a pistol off at a running gun.
yeah, yeah. So after that, you come back to where you started. You grab the rest of your kit. You have to go around the lake, a little bit around the lake, and then up kind of a steep hill. And it's not the worst hill in the world, but by that point you are tired and smoked, and it feels awful. And then it's 100, less than 100 yards to the finish line. So awesome course. Is a little bit different. I mean, each year they seem to change the direction, and not necessarily just the direction, but the course that you take. You hit some similar places, you hit some new places. It's a blast. I always enjoy Guardian. So, Mike, I'll have you start here. What did we like? What did you like about the course this year, the match?
Honestly, I really enjoyed all of it. I I'm crazy. I enjoy the swim. Um, I felt that the round count was really appropriate this year for kind of uh, creating stages that flowed, didn't have huge backups, and because I know the that crew is notorious for loving their high round counts, but they did a really good job of trying to pull all these excellent stages with great reputations from all these different match directors and put them in a match while maintaining their own Guardian flavor. So, yeah, big shout out to that crew and look forward to next year's match.
Yeah, I agree. They knocked it out of the park with the stages this year, and I'll say this criticism, the past stuff, and this is coming from a match director who does this stuff. It can be really hard to figure out like how long a stage is going to take different competitors. I mean, I do typically 4 stages designed a month, design and put on the ground for my 3-gun running gun match for the last 3 years now, almost 4 years. And there are still times that I put a stage down that just takes way longer than I expected. So if you don't do that, even if you do it all the time, you still miss it. I know last year they had quite a few like tough stages that had a lot of higher round count, but just took you a lot of time to do certain things. And they had a lot of, I think it seemed like to me, they had a lot more DNFs. This year, I think they balanced it. I still DNF'd the stage because I just crapped the bed on it, but everything was very doable. The round count, the length of the stage, what you had to do in the stage, I think it was a very, very good mix of it was challenging. Not everybody was going to complete it. And that's the thing. If you're new, if you're inexperienced, if you're a little slow or you're not a great shot, expect that, at a good match, you're going to DNF some stages. But then there's also stages that I think like everybody could get done in the amount of time. I think they had a good balance there. So kudos to all the people involved with that match, because while I've always enjoyed the stages, in past years there's been some stuff that's just like, man, that was too much for the amount of time that we had to do it in. So this year I think they really nailed that. What didn't we like, or what would we change? I don't think there's a lot that I would change unless they can turn down the heat, the thermostat by 10 or 20 degrees. 110 degrees is a little hot for my taste. I'm a little cold-blooded. I'd rather run in 10-degree weather than 110, but I don't know that the match directors have much say in that. Mike, did you have any kind of thing you want to add to that?
Let's see. No, pretty much just the temperatures are my only complaint. I don't remember any course marking issues, and no confusion on shooting briefs. I don't know. I walked away from that one and enjoyed the match, and just wish that I could use a portable air conditioner as my weight next time that actually would work on the course.
Yeah. So we'll do kind of, to wrap this up, we'll do like what we learned, goals, takeaways, anything like that. I'll kind of start there. It's been a while for me. If I'm going to do matches like that, I'm going to have to make a more concerted effort to heat acclimate. I mean, I do train out in the outside, but yeah, I was definitely not ready for that course, for the temperature with that. You know what? I haven't had much time to practice. Like the last 2 years, I've kind of focused on my personal fitness, and that's even separate from running guns. Some of that carries over and helps in running guns, but a lot of what I'm focusing on with my own personal fitness is not things that like I'm trying to see a performance uptake in running gun. So because of that, and with the age of my kids and family, like I just don't practice. So shooting wise, I know the things that I struggle with that I'm not good at. Practicality wise, I'm just not at a point where I'm ready to dedicate the time to improve that. You know, my pistol needs work. I don't have the time and energy to dry fire, because I'm balancing enough other things that's not on the list right now. Hopefully things change and I can get to that. But shooting wise, there wasn't anything fitness wise except for the heat. I felt like I did pretty good. I mean, that was every match this year I've done some kind of weight class division, and it certainly added up. I mean, I was pretty worn down by the end of the season, but there's more fitness I can do with that. I know I'm going to be hitting rucking hard this winter, so maybe that's the only big takeaway for me or anything I learned. Mike, anything with you?
I might have learned that I might have pushed harder than I should have. Coming off that injury in the spring, I decided to do the weight class, and even though I could do it, I probably wasn't physically ready for it yet. So yeah, just a little thing of, make sure you're giving yourself adequate recovery time, and don't expect to be able to come back right after something like that a couple months later and be your old self. Cut yourself a little slack. It was a lot of fun though, and that's definitely one of those courses of fire that if you only spin up and do maybe a week's worth of dry fire before the match, it will give you a benefit in your performance. So I would recommend. I'll admit I'm kind of lazy when it comes to dry fire. Kind of the same situation as Ryan. Is a lot going on at home with little kids, and when the dry fire targets come up, my wife looks at me like, I don't think I signed up for these wall decorations around my living room and kitchen, and to have me sprinting around and then have little kids sprinting around dry firing with me. So she ends up with 3 shooters dry firing instead of 1. My wife's a saint. A lot of you guys
Yeah,
know
she absolutely is.
And so, yeah, even if all you get is a week of dry fire before a match, it can have beneficial impact. So do it, and even if it's a little bit. So, yep, I think that's my kind of wrap up thoughts on
Okay.
that. And yeah, just love Guardian. It's such a fantastic match, and a big shout out to uh, Mike and Scott and Jim and Perry and all the guys that make that happen in the background. Yeah, and kind of a little shout out. Anderson came and sponsored, and they had one of their reps came out and they shot our stage, and those Anderson guys can shoot handguns pretty well too.
Yeah, I love seeing it's